Hello out there, Foxes fans, and welcome back to yet another edition of the U.S. Foxes podcast, coming to you live, as always, from various parts of the United States after another horrible international break. Let's just get rid of those altogether. Let's put that petition. If you're a longtime listener, you know my thoughts on the international break. So more than happy it's over and insanely happy to be back with you all on our lovely little podcast. This evening, I am joined by two of my wonderful co-hosts over in New York City, Mr. Jason Becker of the New York Foxes. What's up, my brother?
Happy to see you guys. Happy that this break is ending. We've got our Leicester coming back, and also happy that that means I can take a little break from the sorry state of New York City sports right now.
Ooh, buddy. Yeah, for those of you that follow the NFL as well, you might have seen that Jason's Giants got off to a less than stellar start, so we won't dwell on that, bud.
Yeah, losing 40-0 is like I don't know, that 9-0 win against Southampton, maybe times 2. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, it's pretty rough start to the year. Down in Houston, joining us this evening from the Texas Foxes, Mr. Jim Harris. What's up, bud?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Good to be back after a little break away from the pod due to work and also not having any games for the last weekend. Doing well, though. And I'm just happy to be in the NFL. If relegation existed, the Texans would not even be in it.
Yeah, the Colts are about the same, but hell, if relegation existed, I mean, half the league wouldn't exist anymore. And you talk about teams like Cleveland and stuff, who apparently are on the up and up. My wife's a Browns fan, and they looked really good against the Bengals. But I digress. This is not an NFL pod. This is the U.S. Foxes podcast, and we have so much to cover, you guys. Thank you for bearing with us over that little break that we took. All sorts of stuff happened. The transfer window finally closed, something that we were all just literally counting down the seconds until that happened. So sick of everything being up in the air. So we finally got some finality to our roster, some ins and outs. So we'll touch on that. Lost to Hull. Our first loss of the season happened. We'll get into that and our thoughts on the state of the team. We can look ahead. Southampton on Friday this week. We're going to be possibly the most anticipated matchup of the year, depending on who you talk to around the league. And yeah, we got all sorts of stuff, some questions at the end, and all sorts of stuff to touch on after this break, guys. So yeah, let's dive right into it, boys. Let's start with the transfer window finally closing. I think it's a good spot to start. We finally get a striker in. Finally, Tom Cannon comes over from Everton, young Englishman. Guess we'll start with you, Jim. Your thoughts on the new striker, and to have a new young English striker again feels pretty good, huh?
It does, yeah. I think he had a great finish to the season last season with Preston, and some of his goals look pretty instinctive. Pun or no pun intended, he does have a bit of a foot like a cannon, so it's nice to see a striker that wallops it into the back of the net. And he certainly was doing that last season. You know, a young youngster. I don't think 20. We don't really want to put too much pressure on him. I'm sure he'll be eased in. You know, I'm sure we'll ask the question marks. If he's so good, why didn't Everton want to keep him? Bearing in mind they are so profligate in front of goal this season and pretty much last season as well. But yeah, exciting stuff.
Born in England, he's a youth international for the Republic of Ireland. Any other news you can fill us in there, Jason?
Well, first things first, I wouldn't use Everton's decision-making as a good barometer for whether or not we should sign a player, because the football-related decisions happening at that club have been shocking. They're just run like a mess, and it's a miracle to me that they stayed up. And they've been able to stay up as long as they have. So I wouldn't hold that against young Tom. But yeah, he's definitely an instinctive striker, and I think that we're looking for a bit more of that profile, especially as we're trying to break down teams with a low block. He's decently big guy too. He also does seem to like to play on the back shoulder of strikers when he has that opportunity there too, and looks like to me like he can hit the ball well with both feet. So, and we do need to keep an eye on the second half of the season and when the African Cup of Nations starts, and that will be happening during this season. And Iheanacho will likely be gone for a good month playing in the African Cup of Nations. If Patson Daka is still on our books at that time, he'll likely be away too. So that's 2 strikers, and we're just left with Jamie Vardy as a number 9. So it does make sense to get some depth in that position, especially when we're trying to offload at least one of the strikers that we currently have.
Yeah, AFCON is that it's a total, just thrown into the season, just kind of screws up the season. And it for whatever reason, because of our recruiting or whatever, it has seemed to affected us, multiple times now due to, Ndidi and Nacho and those guys being on the team. So you brought up his name, Patson Daka. We might as well dive into it real quick, guys, because that is a name that we all were shocked to see not make it over to Bournemouth. And depending on who you talk to, Rudkin fucked it up, or depending on who you talk to, Bournemouth fucked it up, or his agent. I mean, there's all sorts of speculation and rumors around there. I unfortunately don't have anything solid. But can you give us any more insight into that, Jason? Have we had anything solid of what happened in this year? Because that was a done deal, depending on who you talk to.
And done deal for 3 different clubs. We spent the morning reading all the reports that he was off to AC Milan. That didn't happen. And then by all accounts, he rejected a move to Burnley to go to Bournemouth. And then it does seem like everyone thought that day was happening, including both clubs. And for reasons still to be determined, it just kind of fell apart at the end. I think that's why it also took so long to announce the signing of Tom Cannon, and that had happened much earlier in the day, and we were kind of holding on to that. I think some of the terms may have been contingent on what happened with Patson Daka, and I'm just as surprised as everyone else that he's still on the team. I think overall, like, our incomings have been very good this transfer window, but just the state of the club right now and the outgoings that we all thought would happen, and just didn't happen. It's a little baffling to me, and I'm not sure why we are insisting on keeping certain players on the books when there clearly isn't a spot for them on the team.
Yeah, Harry Suter, another one that we thought was a done deal, who now will. This is such a weird position now, Jim, for these guys who, we had heard about the list of guys that had said they didn't want to play championship football. And then we heard about the mystery 6 that came to Enzo and said that they changed their mind and they wanted to play football. So now we've got Patson Daka and Harry Suter. Both of them Jim, in your opinion, do we try and reintegrate these guys into the club, into the side? Like, what do you do in this position?
I think Enzo's made it kind of clear that, and Jason, you talked about this in the last pod, about sort of he knows his team and he knows what he wants from players. And so I think he's starting to build the squad of players that can do the things that he wants. I think, we're seeing it's a work in progress, and it's, maybe taking a bit longer than some would like, but we've not had a long preseason. We've not had a lot of time to get these players together and so forth. But, some of us may say, hey, Patson Daka was going to sign the paperwork with Bournemouth, but he missed the page. That might be why it fell through. But that would be a terrible joke to make. I think Harry, I don't know if anyone watched the Australia play Mexico. Harry Suter, was a sort of, lauded as I think the Guardian said, the hero and the villain of that game. He scored a header. He contributed, and then, kind of contributed to the goals that Mexico scored as well. So, I think we maybe are seeing, why he's not in the team, if he's not kind of up to sort of the tidy standards, or if he's got a bit recklessness in him, where I think someone like Vestergaard he doesn't do anything spectacular. Ollie's been saying for weeks he's been solid. Yeah, fine, he's been solid, but not special. But he's not kind of made a massive mistake that sort of cost us, a game or kind of getting booked. Whether that's generous or not, I don't know. I think we may have had a bit of luck in that too. So maybe that's kind of what Enzo's seeing, and it's like the guy, he's not bringing some stuff to the table.
Can you blame Suter for having a game and being all over the place? I mean, the guy hasn't played a competitive minute in forever.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's so strange. And what'll be interesting to me is to see how the players.
Sorry, go on, Matt. It was almost
go ahead.
I was going to say it's like he had Danny Wood in goal, so he decided, maybe he got a shout behind him to leave the ball.
I'm curious how these players, and their attitudes will be, because, I think of players like Pappy Mendy a few years ago when he was left off the side and literally just worked his ass off so hard in, training that Brendan suddenly brought him back on the side. Remember that? So maybe we see something like that where Patson, we've never once heard anything bad about Patson's attitude or anything like that, being a distraction, anything like that. So maybe these guys, embrace it and just take it as a challenge and take their game up that level. Can either of you speak on the rumor about the $5 million fee that we owe Salzburg? This is a rumor that we owed Salzburg $5 million if Patson plays one more game for us. Did you guys hear that at all?
Well, it does sound like it's something right up our alley, considering, we've made loan signings like heavily dependent on player appearances, and we seem to be, trying to come up with, every financial, trick in the book. There were, we can touch on this later on, but there's, all the reports have come out now that we took out a loan to get the Madison payments early. We seem to be, trying to be as creative as possible with the finances. So, I wouldn't put it past us to structure a deal like that with
okay.
If you're Salzburg, you have to, that kind of deals at the time you would have thought made a lot of sense. Vardy being his age, Pats and Daka probably. The thinking was that he'd slot in to be Vardy's successor, and at the time, Iheanacho was not playing very much. So if you're, Salzburg, and you've got a guy that has recently put up numbers that were comparable to Erling Haaland's, you're probably counting on that money.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think the other thing is both Suter and Daka have been registered. So I think the door's not closed for them. I think they've got probably the fact that a lot of the signings we've made, or the promotion of some of the younger players, have helped in their favor. Tom Cannon doesn't need to be registered because he's a homegrown player, for example. So whether that's a strategic signing as well, Jason, to your point, it's like, hey, it's kind of long-term coverage, but he also doesn't need to be registered. Matt, you mentioned it gives us that sort of backup for AFCON as well. I think we can see a world where there's games that Suter needs to come in when we're playing more physical teams. We've kind of played a couple in Cardiff, and trying to think who else was sort of a bit more physical. But Cardiff was certainly one of the most physical. But I don't think it was as rough and tumble as we thought it might be. And whether that's just because the championship and football in general is evolving. I think Matt Piper were talking about League Two. You start seeing inverted fullbacks and playing it from the back now as well. I'm not sure I'd want to do that on a Sunday league match. I don't think anyone would know where they are if you don't drill it. But I can imagine him coming in the winter months, and you need someone who's going to be putting it in row Z and clearing headers and in a swirling game, right? And so I think it's a sensible opinion to keep the options open.
Yeah, and let's be real, guys. Every other team in this league would chew off their left hand to have a player like Harry Suter and Patson Daka just chilling and not doing anything for their team. So it's another situation where we've just got a freaking weird wealth of riches here, Jason.
Yeah, I think we have there have been individual transactions that I think are very good, and we haven't talked about Fatau yet, signing in, a nice, good young attacking winger in him with a lot of potential. Looked very exciting against Hull. Yunus, who is a highly rated winger from Turkey. So we have, there have been certain specific transactions that I think have been very good and very shrewd. And there's a very clear plan. You can tell we know exactly why we're signing these players. That I think, there's a kind of a running theme here, right? And I think we're seeing there are a lot of different perspectives that are, circulating around the Leicester City, supporters world. When we look at, kind of individual results and performances, and then looking at, the state of the season as a whole. And now that the transfer window is closed, the state of the squad as a whole. And I think it's easy to there are some very obvious wins there in the transfer window, and then there are some larger questions that are still puzzling me and still do trouble me in terms of the some of the players that we still have on the books and the size of the squad for being in the second division.
Yeah, there was never going to be a cheat code to get out of the transfer fucking mess that was left. Unfortunately, there was going to the roosters were always going to come home to roost, I guess is the phrase I'm looking for. It would have been nice to have just clicked our fingers and gotten everything we wanted to off the books, but unfortunately, guys, this is not how it happens. And teams are not going to just roll over and be like, oh yeah, sure, let us help you out financially. No, what can we do for you? So Christensen also goes out on loan, as well as Luke Thomas. So we see two left backs there who clearly don't fit into Enzo's plans to take off. So glad that they'll both be getting game time somewhere else. And then also found somebody to take Bouba Samare, which honestly is the most impressive thing of the whole window, if you ask me, because good God, how long did it take him to get there?
It's a little annoying, though, to see so many of these guys fail upward.
Oh, I know. Don't get me. Yeah,
to go to a club like Sevilla for, to Thomas to, find where he did for, just all these other players, Castagna and everyone else to find Premier League clubs. When a lot of these guys, played a pretty big role in relegation, is just, it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow there. It's a little ridiculous. I think it also just shows that that a lot of these guys just, were already thinking about their next move, before this last season even started and couldn't wait to leave. A lot of people were talking about Madison and Barnes and thinking that we were going to get £100 million for both of those players. And we have Madison, Barnes, Victor Christensen, Luke Thomas, Patson Daka, Yuri Tielemans, Çağlar Sayoncu, Daniel Amarty, George Hurst, another, couple of players, no need to go down the whole list. And we didn't get to that number combined for all of those players. Let a lot of money walk out the door. We're not able to sort out permanent moves for some players, and we still have a lot of, I don't want to call another human being this, but we do have some dead wood, some redundancies there, on the books that are still on the books for this year. We are carrying 5 keepers. We named 4 keepers registered 4 keepers on the squad. There's no team anywhere in the pyramid that should be doing that. And we're stuck with contracts that we can't move in for whatever reason, whether it's it almost feels like when you're on the outside looking in here, sometimes we do get some good inside info, but if you're a supporter, if you're someone looking at this, it's like, why aren't we moving these players? It's almost like we're cutting off our nose to spite our face with some of these deals and insisting on top dollar instead of taking a small hit to move a player on when there is clearly no more room for them at the club. So a lot of wins, a lot of, exciting players. I mean, if you, Matt, if you talk to me about each of the incomings and you ask me to grade them, I would give very high marks for all of these incoming players. I'm a big fan of pretty much everyone that we brought into the club. On the flip side, I have concerns about, players that are still on the books and to make up the squad. And now I know it's very, very difficult to do a complete rebuild of a squad in one window, but you can't tell me that there wasn't, there weren't any, decent offers or any way to get, Danny Ward to move on and maybe to pay a portion of his salary instead of just having him just sit around and doing nothing.
That's what I mean.
Paying him for what?
It just doesn't make sense to me, man. Like there's no club that we could find that would not take some of these players, and you almost wonder if it's, Rudkin and the recruiting department just trying to save face a little bit by not having a number come out that's just so fucking embarrassing to them that I signed him for X and now we're selling him for X, because I honestly can't. How do you not find a championship side that wants Danny Ward? I mean, like, honestly, we say what we do about him, but
look, I think we can't underestimate the player power that's happening right now. Look at the player dynamic. This summer and this sort of last year and 18 months is like, forget about Bosman and all that, which was game changing. But this is literally the first time we've seen players willing to go and, not Winston Bogart at Chelsea. That was the famous story for the last 15 years. This is like en masse players refusing to play, refusing to go anywhere. Like Danny Ward is essentially a cheerleader. You look at the clips of Danny Ward helping Mads Hermansen and Stolichek train, and then high-fiving them as they walk into the changing room when they show the behind-the-scenes cameras, right? Obviously, he's clearly a popular guy, but it's like, yeah, but we're also seeing that. Why are all these players going to Saudi? I'm not saying that like the money's in the same realm, but, Jordan Henderson going to Saudi Arabia, he could have got a Premier League team. He's not going to go and do that to, extend his belief of LGBTQ plus to the Saudi people, or to go and do that. Look at him trundling for England, because he's barely kicked a ball or trained hard. And I think some of these players are just like, you know what? I'm taking the paycheck. Vestergaard's done it. Tielemans did it last season. I think we've got multiple players who are just doing that up and down. And I think I'm sure, maybe when we get some more like the Rudkin diaries or whatever, we get a bit more intel, we'll see like this many players turn down, like we put it on the plate, we were going to, contribute, but it wasn't going to add up to the sum of the whole for them. So they said no. We've heard Vestergaard famously like, oh, my kids are in school now and I'm happy in Leicester. I'm happy because I'm getting paid 60 grand a week for being not even really an average championship defender from what we've seen. Slow. Has he won a header yet this season? I don't know. Not certainly attacking one. So what's the point in that? There's, freaking seeing Johnny Evans go to Man United as well, talking about, getting promoted upwards. But I don't know if getting promoted into the Manchester United back four at the moment is a promotion. So
yeah, we saw how that worked out.
I personally feel like, as mentioned, I think the focus on the incoming and what we've done. It's clearly a kind of go back to the, the famous, Steve Walsh, that season with Nigel, looking at people who are going to fit the squad, have got the right temperament. You mentioned Eunice coming in, Jason. First game when he came off the bench in the League Cup, he started. Chasing down people. Like, I was more impressed with his tracking back and work rate than his attacking stuff. He was a bit not really doing it. He was quite quiet again against Huddersfield, against Hull, but his work rate was there. Like, and I think to have that sort of gear change of we've got different people who can come in for a bit of different situations. So, we bring in like a different type of right winger, hey, right wingers, how long have we been wanting one and two come in the space of like 3 days, like Buster's right. So I really feel like, him and Fatawu potential. We've seen Marcel come through. That's the other thing for me. We're already seeing youth team players getting a chance and starting and being part of it. Enzo's call of like, hey, 1 year I didn't see him turn up to training, and put it in after he scored a goal the week before. He scored a screamer, and he's like, sorry, dude, you're on the bench. Or I think he wasn't even on the bench, was he? So, and then we see McAteer come in and get 2. So I think there's something happening there. There's promise. Less than 23 years old average age of the signings that we've got, and that includes Cody, who shockingly is only 30. I thought he was like older than that personally. And so I think like we're building a team, we're building an ethos. Are we, so I think that's positive on that. I think we can get into like playing style and other stuff and what we've been doing in a little bit, but I'm going to be glass half full on what we've got. We got rid of some players that we, ultimately we lightened the load on some of that.
I mean, I'm with you on the incomings. I love so far everyone that we brought in, and all of these signings make sense, and that is refreshing because how many times have we signed players we're just not sure about, or where do they fit in? What's the plan here? And it does seem like Enzo has come in and he has a very clear plan. He has a very clear vision of how he wants to play football and how he wants his squad to look.
Yep, absolutely.
Definitely does that. And I guess let's dive right into it because Hull, thus far this year, there have been, the results, can't argue with the results and where we are in the table, guys. But there, you'd be silly to not say there have been questions about the style of play. We're talking about them before the pod today and how we feel like there's just a major disconnect between some of the fan base and Enzo's style of play. Now we see our first loss this year against a Hull City side that came in and I mean, basically made us uncomfortable. And what is crazy when you look at the stats on this, are 21 shots to their 7, our 65, damn near 70% possession to their 30% possession, 613 passes to their 342 passes. A match that really was just so freaking frustrating to watch. And yeah, as our first loss of the year, I'm glad that it's happened. But man, I just feel like it's something that we now need to use to springboard into the rest of the season. Jim, you want to talk about your thoughts on the whole match, just from a zoomed out perspective?
Yeah, it's been obviously it's been a couple of weeks now, so it's a little bit rusty, but I think it was a game where we just sort of were trying, we had a lot of the ball, we're trying a lot of things, but we also were very, very poor at making chances and really clear cut chances and finishing. And I think it was almost like all of the things where we had luck and the rub of the green in the other games, like someone cleaned through and they didn't score, or we kind of pulled out one, we had a couple of games we've scored a wonder goal. We just didn't quite have that. We almost got Fatawu bailing us out to make it 1-1 with that run and hit the post and so forth. But I think the thing that I don't think it didn't frustrate me because it was the plan, but I can see how people were maybe getting frustrated, was just the sort of Hull did a great job of kind of just putting Banks behind and saying, look, play through us and come and see what you can do. And we couldn't really unlock them. I think this is the bit of we're missing that sort of attacking 8 who's going to contribute a goal or two. You know, there's been lots to be said about like the strikers haven't scored a league goal yet, right? So I think that's a big thing. But I think we're going to get to a point. We'll break it down when we've moved the ball more quickly. We've done well, but I think it's just this sort of like horseshoe around and then playing it backwards and playing it forwards. But I don't think it's the same as with Rodgers, where we played it backwards and we did it. I think we are doing it to kind of probe and break down. I think just Hull defended really well. They were aggressive. They didn't mind mixing it up with us and put us off our stride and came us at home. And I think you could see that like Rossignol had kind of set them up to say, like, we know what they're going to do. And the biggest thing they did is like Callum Doyle, that was the first game we've seen him play where he didn't, it was like, whoa, who's this guy? He's a different player because they just singled him out and were just like, we're going to put our fast winger on you. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to play it in the channels. And then we saw them also really take advantage of sort of the fact we didn't have fullbacks and they were playing it right down those channels, like, and the fast tucks in a bit more than Doyle. And so they played into that space and they just worked it through. And like on a different day, I could see us being 1-1, but I think it was almost a fair result.
Yeah, it's almost like they realized that Callum is a center back and not a left back, Jason.
Yeah, look, it was a frustrating game. Overall, we were the better side. They scored a fairly, pretty lucky goal, I'd say. We didn't get the luck. We didn't create enough clear-cut chances. There's a reason why teams sit back in low blocks like that. It's because it's effective. It's difficult to break down, especially when you are a side that's like relatively organized. Let's not pretend that we haven't done that as Leicester City Football Club to the bigger, badder teams out there, right? We've certainly done that plenty of times. We almost got away with, stealing at least a point against Man City just last season, and Kevin De Bruyne hit a ridiculous free kick to get them the win. So teams do that because, look, it's effective. They didn't play much football. They sat back. They defended. Yes, we didn't create enough clear-cut chances, but we also a little unlucky. Patau hits the post another inch or two into the right side, and that's a goal. This is a game where just kind of the luck didn't go our way. Matt, as you said, I think like on another day, or Jim, maybe we get at least a point out of that game. But this is still a team, we just were talking about the transfer window and creating a team here. This is a team that's still a work in progress. Mm-hmm. And when it takes a lot of chemistry, it takes team chemistry to break down these low blocks and to break down teams that are very organized in defense. We still don't quite have that yet, the chemistry between players, and we still are learning the system, right? And we've slotted in a few new players into the regular starting 11. So yeah, right now things are a little bit paint by numbers. We're not playing a free-flowing football, maybe, that Enzo would like us to play, it seems. And because players are still learning the system, they're probably going to take the more cautious approach because they're trying not to screw up and just trying to play the safe play in the system. What my hope is, and I have faith that this will happen, is that as we continue through the season, we'll see a bit more braver football out of that side. We'll see passes and plays and movement off the ball that's become second nature, and players now are comfortable. They know where to be, and they'll understand, how to break down that low block more effectively and create more clear-cut chances. I mean, Enzo is talking about this, right? It's a frustration for him too. Players have said that. Ricardo said that coming, after this game. So I think the players understand what's going on. They know where the current shortfalls are, and I do think it's a matter of time before we. It's still going to take some time, But maybe that is a reason why we bring in, a Tom Cannon, more of a fox in the box type of striker who's going to take his chance and score it, rather than an Iheanacho who, will come into midfield and try to kind of bring everyone else around him. Jamie mentioned like all the different players that we have and all this, attacking talent. Maybe McAteer moves into the middle where he's played, quite a bit for the reserves. And, I don't know if anyone caught this week, but there was a very encouraging video the club put out of Will Alves and Sammy Braybrook, who are back.
Training again, yeah.
Could be options for us in the middle of the field to give us a bit more attacking flair and help us, break down some of our opponents. So when I look at that Hull game, I see a side that was a bit unlucky, and I also see a side that is very much a work in progress. And, we didn't get the points, but I would have predicted that we would have had our first loss earlier in the season. I'm not that worried about it. And I don't think it's a bad time to lose before the international break. The players that are still around will have extra time to work with Enzo. But now we're getting into the thick of it, and we've got some, some of the bigger boys in the division are lining up on the fixtures list.
Yeah, shit's about to get real, and man, I think my whole thing with that I've tried to relate to other supporters when I'm talking to them, the San Diego Foxes in the group here, is that we hired an insanely ambitious manager here. You guys, this isn't like a guy that we just were trying to plug a hole with that was going to bring in a 4-4-2 to just try to right the ship and score goals kind of thing. This is not a simple manager trying to play simple football. He's not, pardon the pun from the song, but Enzo's trying to build a Lambo here. He's not trying to build, a Chevy. So this system that he's coming in and teaching, it's a complex one that involves lots of trust, and that trust is not something that you can build up over the span of a fucking month or whatever he's been here now. The players have to trust not only themselves, they've got to trust Enzo. And I think when we play Hull again, you guys, I just see us beating their ass, like dead serious. I think by the time we find these guys again later in the season, I think we are a well-oiled clicking machine. And I think we'll laugh at where we were earlier in the season when this team found a way to beat us, because the talent is there. The manager is there. The only thing that we haven't had yet is the time for it all to mend and become what we think it's going to be. And the transfer window is finally closed, so now there's no question marks. We know the roster. We know who's going to be there. We know who you're training with every day. You know who's beside you in the locker, who's sitting on you beside you on the bus. Things are now going to get solidified, and Enzo's system can start to be put into place fully. And I think now that just, encompassing everything at the club is only going to lead to very good things, Jim.
No, 100%. And I think that's the biggest thing. To me, this is like, hey, when you go and have a golf lesson, right? It fucks up your game because you get told to do something that's not natural to you, to change it, and you just have to ingrain that into your game. But when you've done enough practice and you've drilled it, it becomes second nature and you improve. And I think that's what we're seeing with Leicester, right? They've been told to do something different that they don't do normally. They're having to think for a split second. They're also having to learn and play with a new player. Like, let's not forget how many new people are in the starting 11. Yep. So, this is a bit like you go play a pickup game. You don't know really who anyone is at the start of the game. Who do I pass to? What do I not? Like, I'm not saying it's the same equivalent, but I think it will get there. I think we're all seeing that it's a process and it's going to happen. And I think it's just a case of, look, we won every single game until one. If you'd have just said to us, hey, going into international break, you'll have won, the first 5 and then you'll lose or whatever, we'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Sign me up off on that. And you know what? And you'll concede 4 goals in the league in the first games as well.
Right.
We're going to be like, okay, we'll play 5 games. We conceded 4 goals. Yeah, we haven't scored that many, but whatever. We scored 7, so there's a bit more. But you're going to be third in the league. You'll have played, some good, solid teams, and you'll have had basically 75% new faces in the starting 11. Okay, and now I'm taking that all day, every day. And also, you don't have Brendan Rodgers as your manager. You have a guy that wants to play proper football, like you said, Matt. So, look, I'm positive into the break. We have never started this well. If we go on a run, this is all going to be forgotten. And I feel like we just have some time to go and do it. And even if we don't go on a run immediately, we're going to start stringing some matches together. At the end of the day, I don't think we're going to piss the league. It's not like so easy that we just turn up and, people roll over backwards to let us win. They're going to try. And we're clearly the team that everyone wants to beat. Look, it's kind of this crazy, the press, we're talking about us as the team that everyone wanted to beat. Not Southampton, not Leeds. Us. Like, I can't even remember them really talking much about those other two teams in terms of who's going to come straight back up, who's going to, Leeds were a shambles and have kind of, made a mess. Look at the start they've got. They've got 6 points. They're like bottom half of the table. Look where we are. We've got 12 points. We're third in the league. We're above Southampton. We're above Leeds. We're only off the top spot by a point. Hey, I'm not complaining. I don't think we are. This pod is not complaining.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are a lot of chicken littles out there, right, who are, saying that the sky is falling.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a good time for everyone who might be feeling anxious because we have one loss and we haven't, blown the doors off any of the opposition yet. It's just kind of remind everyone, it's been a little while since we've been in this division.
Yeah.
The championship is not decided by the first international break in September. This division is a gauntlet. We have 41 more league games left to go. All right, so get comfortable.
Yeah.
Take a while, and that's okay. And this division is all about building momentum toward the end of the season.
Yes.
Yeah.
And going on that run and outlasting everyone else in this grueling marathon. That is what this season is. This season isn't about just playing beautiful, free-flowing football right from the get-go, winning every game. There has never been an invincibles in this division, playing this many games. And there's a reason why. This is going to be tough. It is going to be a dogfight. We are going to win ugly games. We are going to play opposition teams that are going to set out to make games ugly and as ugly as possible. So the fact that we're getting points, that we've collected the number of points that we have at this point in the season, to me, that's the most encouraging thing. The fact that this is a side that in every game we've been down have tried and fought until the end, until the final whistle. That is the other, positive for me. So those are the items that I'm looking at. And that's why I don't feel very discouraged. Like, I didn't really care that we lost to Hull. We were going to lose the first game eventually. Now let's see, how we respond from that. We've got a few interesting matchups happening, but again, talk to me in March.
Yeah. Losing to a well-coached Hull City side who's going to be up there at the end of the season is a lot different, guys. If we'd have lost, to Rotherham or something like that, I think there would have been way worse games to lose.
Hull had a decent window too. I mean, they're not in this division, they're not a bad side, and they still didn't even really try to play much football against us, and kind of rode their luck a bit. To get through those 3 points.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the stats, because I know, hey, Chris is not here today, but Chris loves the stats. But we're having 17.5 shots a game. All right, let's put that in perspective. How many did we have last season per game?
Did we even match that 21 shot total at any point last season in any game? I don't know, but I would be willing
probably
to bet.
Not, man.
Oh, absolutely. And then like if you look at, so averaging that per game, like we're looking at, then I'm just looking like shots on target is 5.4. So put in perspective, Southampton, who are the number one most shots per game and the number one shots on target per game, they're 18.6 per game shots, 6.4 on target. So not talking a lot of difference here in that. From an XG perspective, we're averaging like 1.7 per game. We've scored 1.4. So, we could be said we're a bit unlucky with how we're doing. We're sort of slightly underperforming with our shooting accuracy, right? And I think that is borne out by, and this is my crazy stat now for the day, which is if you think about where we are like making our shots, like something like only 5% of our shots are inside the 6-yard box. So half our shots, nearly like 48%, are inside the 18-yard box, but a lot of our shots are from outside the box. And I think that to me says a lot about the chance creation that we're making and the fact that teams are sitting in this low block and not letting us get into the 18-yard box and certainly not the 6-yard box. We've not really had a chance where we've not really kind of created a chance where we pulled it back and knocked one in really. I think McAteer, his was probably counts as inside the 6-yard box with his header, right? But we're trying to work these angles and we're trying to play through people. And it's, as you guys said, it's going to happen. And I think once we know, like once they know what each other's doing, and we're going to kind of balance it out. And I think we can see people like Cassidy coming in stronger and stronger. Obviously his first game, what a belter on that. But he's got an eye for goal. And then I think there's the bit of the balance of, okay, so if we've got one other attacking 8 who's going to contribute, and we've got then wingers who are going to start contributing, and then we've got center forwards, they're going to start watching those players. And I think this is where we'll see them then creating space for Vardy, creating space for Iheanacho. Iheanacho's kind of has played a pretty deep false 9 for when he's played. So I think we always know Dewsbury Hall is like, sorry guys, but I feel like he's a bit of a sort of Jordan Henderson like type player. He can run up and he does a lot of running. He puts a lot in. He creates stuff. We know he needs to kind of do what he did preseason and against Coventry more and more. And I think there's a bit of, I wonder if he's put so much pressure on himself that he had such a flying start that you just see him trying a little bit too much to force a pass, or not even play a first time pass. He's holding it because he thinks he can do something. And we've seen a lot of shots from him from outside the box. I think even the goal game before was sort of like because he had a shot and it kind of got deflected towards goal, and then we scored. But we'll start getting it through, and then I think just one, like we know Winks is not going to contribute, but I think if Ricardo starts actually pushing into that attacking, that we can create an overload in the middle because we know he can score a goal, we know he can play, and we can trust like what we've got. And if I just worry about like the back line 3 being very exposed to being hit on the counter attack with so much pressure and pushing so far onto the edge of the 18-yard box that we are just playing around and we're just beaten by one ball. And Vestergaard is slower than geological time. I think like Fass is like quite quick, but I don't think he reads the game super well. He's more of a reactive, instinctual defender for me. Because the thing that I always see when I'm looking at analysis is like how many tackles do centre backs make, and if they make a high number, certainly of slide tackles, that probably means they're actually less effective than they're making high number of interceptions and making a high number of kind of blocks or whatever. And I feel like he does a lot of like last minute, oh shit, blah blah blah, and partly because he's covering 2 spots maybe, but I think he's just not quite there, and I think maybe that's the only question mark I've got, like on the pace at the back and sort of the ability to read. And Cody coming back would be a big
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Connor Cody back in training. That's huge fucking news for that back line. No matter who you talk to, that's only a positive thing for this defense. Proven leader, a guy that's been the glue holding this team together. I mean, the reports you learn, the reports you read about him, he's been on the bus with the team, traveling everywhere, and been such a part of the chemistry building. That is just great to hear. So I think, yeah, Connor comes in, and I think we see immediately some big changes there, in my opinion. We are at 50 minutes, guys, so let's dive into as quick as we can here. Southampton, Friday at noon at St. Mary's. Last two matches we've lost to these guys, so we definitely owe them after a couple defeats in the Premier League. They're sitting 7th right now with a 3-1-1 record. They've got 10 goals for versus our 7. But the big stat that jumps out to me is they have 12 goals against versus our 4. So definitely a back line that seems to be an even bigger mess than ours, Jason. Your thoughts going into Southampton on Friday?
Yeah, I think these next 3 games are going to be real, strong tests of us, and will let us know kind of where we are and how we're going to, how we stack up in the division early. Again, I'm not going to panic if we don't get all 3 points, at Southampton. But yeah, people have been wanting a little bit more excitement, a little bit more action. And I think you get that kind of by default against this year's Southampton team. So I'm expecting some goals. I think I'm expecting both teams to find the back of the net based on, kind of how we've been playing. And maybe this is kind of what we need. We've shown that we're comfortable on the ball against those teams that want to sit back. I don't think Southampton's going to do that at home against us. I think they're going to try to assert themselves in their game. And maybe, that might work in our favor. We've seemed to have done pretty well when we've played in games where the other side has had to kind of open up a bit, and we've been able to get up the pitch very quickly. So we may not be breaking down a block of 5 and then a block of 4 to get the goal. We might only need to, use our speed on the wings and use those players that can beat a man on one-on-one to get the goal. So I'm looking forward to it. I know Friday night, it's got to be a pain in the ass to, get down to Southampton from Leicester, especially if you're trying to get back that night and not making a weekend of it. But a 3 p.m. kickoff on a Friday in New York City this time of year ain't that bad at all. I have the afternoon off, so just looking forward to getting down to the factory and getting an early start to the weekend. And we have had, some fun on Fridays against Southampton before, so
Yeah, just a little bit of history there for sure. That I'm jealous of 3 p.m. because we've got a noon kickoff here in San Diego.
Start your weekend 3 hours earlier than me.
I wish I could, but of course, got a new trainee at work that I've got to devote as much time as possible into getting up to speed.
Trainee them in the ways of the Leicester.
Yeah, bring them right to the bar. We'll see how that would go. Well, I'm happy for you, and yeah, hopefully you guys get a good turnout. But yeah, I'm with you, man. I think this will be such a good litmus test for where we are these next 3 games. Let's be real. The meat of our schedule coming up. Jim, your thoughts heading into Southampton?
Well, I think the biggest stat, and I know you guys were so excited when I told you this earlier, was this is the number 1 and number 2 teams for possession playing each other. So in the league. So I think we're going to see, I think this will be an interesting game because Southampton look to dominate. They've been, I think, pretty impressive with their attacking play and just playing through teams. Actually, looking at the XG, I think it looks like they've been overscored against. So that's my only worry. Their XG against is 1.25, but their actual goals conceded against is around 2. So let's hope they keep that up and they give us some, easy chances, right? Because or they make some errors and blunders and get and contribute. Because I think this is going to be a super fun super fun game with two footballing sides who are both jockeying for, hey, we're the big dogs that went down. They've probably got a chip on their shoulder that, as I mentioned earlier, no one's been talking about Southampton. They're kind of in this rebuild phase of getting all these young players in and so forth. And so I'm going to be, luckily trying to get out early from work as well. It's 2:00 here. So I'll be blocking that out. And I'm super excited for this game. This is probably the game sort of, apart from first game of the season against Cov, and Cov being like close to where I grew up. This is the game I'm like, hey, this is a pumped up one for me.
Same.
Yeah, same here. We're going to know a lot after this one, guys. And I think a lot of our questions will be answered after this. So speaking of questions, you guys, the wonderful listeners, were so kind to send in a few to the pod this week. So I would love to pull those up. Totally ready for this part of the podcast. Tony Wilson, friend of the pod, asks, with our first defeat against Hull, do you feel it could be used as a reality check? It felt good to get carried away a bit with the great start, but we are work in progress with a lot of new players who need to gel and understand Enzo ball. Tony, it's like you're in the room here beside me listening to what we have covered on the pod so far. So hopefully, yeah, we covered that for you. Definitely just need to gel and get that cohesion as a group, in my opinion, and the boys' opinion as well. LCFC Kazi says, how do you guys think Ishaku did for his debut? I think he looks super promising. We did talk about Mr. Fatawu, maybe not as much as we should. That left foot looks freaking nasty, boys. That cut inside and then a left shot rifle, certainly reminiscent of a former Algerian right winger that we used to have. So yeah, I'm very excited about Fatawu. What about you, Jason?
Yeah, he looks like a really exciting player. A little bit of a different profile to our typical winger. A little bit more powerful. He, especially for such a young player, he showed a lot of bravery. He tried to make things happen. He looked comfortable cutting inside and also, going outside onto his right foot. Once he's still a very raw player. He's still so young, but I don't think you can ask for much more than what he gave us in his debut. And if he would have scored that goal, wow, that would have been something else. So, I think he so a lot of fans have been kind of wanting to get off their seats a little bit and wanting that excitement. And he's a player that really might do that for us and really make you sit on the edge of your seat whenever the ball comes near him.
Yeah, it would be nice, definitely, to get another nice piece from Sporting. We've had some mixed results there as far as getting players from them. And our final one, Weston says, "Hey guys, UK listener here, and also massive NFL fan. Would love to know who your teams are. Keep up the great work on the pod and go Jaguars." I don't like that part. Weston, thank you for listening, man. I am a Colts fan. I've been a Colts fan my whole life. I got a brick with my name on it in Lucas Oil Stadium. So big Colts guy here. Jason?
G-Men, Giants all the way. My grandfather actually used to perform at halftime shows at Giants games. He was a member of a marching band called the Caballeros. It was kind of a Latin-inspired marching band. We are not Latino, but that's what he played. He played conga drums. He was conga jack. And so he would play halftime shows at Giants games. And I've been a Giants fan my whole life. And one of my earliest memories is being very, very small at my grandfather's house when the Giants played the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl back in the 80s.
Oh, that's so cool. Shout out Conga Jack. That's an awesome story, man. Jimmy, finish it up here with your terrible team.
Well, I'm a Houston Texans fan. So kind of crazily, I was an Oilers fan when they started showing NFL in the late 80s as a youngster.
Oh, that's cool.
So Warren Moon was my big quarterback in that run and gun offense. So it's kind of a bit of a round. My brother randomly was a Rockets fan in the early 90s as well, the season before they won the championship with Hakeem as well. Everyone was a Bulls fan in the UK, unsurprisingly, during that period of the late 80s, early 90s. So he decided to be a Rebel. I just like the way they played in the style, and I've been into NFL ever since like playing the original Madden, where I got an American import copy for my Sega Mega Drive and called in the UK Genesis here,
Whoa.
and I unashamedly I probably played the Bengals then because for some reason they were the best team in the game. I don't know why in the original Madden, but there you go.
So you were destined to wind up in Houston, is what
Yeah, I guess like so many
Yeah.
things have happened that caused me to go to come here, and now we have a quarterback who has to thinking about players who have to think about what's happening, watching our Leicester. That's the same with CJ Stroud right now. Kind of a bit deer in headlights, but you know he's doing all right considering he like our most expensive player on the team, Laramie Tunsil, decides that he doesn't want to be part of the offensive line and block anyone, or like to keep getting penalties away.
I will be rooting a bit for the Jags this year just because in the last round of my family's fantasy football draft, I did draft the Jags kicker.
Oh, nice. There you go. Well, yeah, we've for those of you that in the UK that might not know, the Houston, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville are all in the same division, so that's why it's a little more personal there. But thank you for that question.
I love that. That was great.
Yeah, super good. Kind of switch it up a little bit. Also wanted to give a shout out to a listener, KJ McNeely. He's a listener in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. He reached out to the pod saying that he is looking for guys to kind of start maybe a Milwaukee Foxes chapter and wondered if we could point him to any other Foxes. And I was looking at our numbers, and we do have some listeners in Wisconsin, usually about 6 to 7 of you, it looks like, every pod. So I would just be over the moon if we could somehow get you guys all together. If you want to reach out, he is on Instagram. It is kj.mcneely, McNealy, and he is looking for other Foxes to join up with him in Milwaukee and start a really cool Milwaukee Foxes chapter. That would be sick. But yeah, guys, on that note, I'll just take this time again to just tell you kind of how we've grown San Diego Foxes to the point where it is we had 16 people last week, outnumbering every single Premier League group at the Bluefoot. We had 16 people there to literally watch an HDMI cord plugged into a TV off a laptop. So pretty awesome. But how I've done that is, you can't just limit your search for people to soccer fans. Because of where we are in America, a lot of guys didn't grow up watching soccer. They grew up with the NFL. They grew up with the NBA. So what I've found success is get that coworker that's a huge NBA fan or a huge baseball fan, and just invite him over to the bar and say, hey, every drink that you have on this game will be on me. No question is too stupid, and I will buy your drinks. You just come to the bar, watch the game with me. If you have fun, great. Come back next time, buy your own drinks, and you've got a new member. And if you don't have a good time, you've gotten free drinks, and you never have to come back again. And using that approach, guys, we have built so many more members of this group by just introducing him to the community, introducing him to the sport, and really the novelty of getting up in the morning to get together with your friends and drink beer is pretty awesome once you get guys into it. So that's how I would suggest growing your group and just introducing guys into the game and this amazing team. And next thing you know, you'll have 3, 4, 5, 6 members, and it just goes from there.
Yeah, bring some friends with you, from the beginning to just meet up with you to watch that game. And listen, all you need is another person, then you have a group.
Bingo.
Right? That's all you need to do is just find that one other person who's going to be down to meet up with you, maybe down to kind of do some of the tweets for you, etc. But all you need is one other person, and then you're a group. And so I think that's just the first step, and just think of it that way, and you will grow. More people will find out. That person will have a friend who'll ask them, "Oh, what are you doing Saturday?" "Oh, I'm going down to watch the game. Hey, come join us." Then and it'll start to go, and then next thing you know, like someone will know someone, like, "Oh, you support this Leicester team, my coworker does, or my neighbor's a big Leicester fan. I'm going to tell them about you, and they're going to come down and watch with you." And then next thing you know, you'll have, a big, strong, Milwaukee Foxes crew
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And guys too, you'd be shocked too, like as your groups grow, you start getting people from Leicester noticing you, and then they come on vacations and they reach out. We had 3 people from Leicester in the bar with us this weekend. Shout out to Jacob and his sister. So honestly, guys, it just will go naturally, and it's just a fun thing to start and a fun thing to continue with. So yeah, guys, just give it a little effort and it'll all come together.
But yeah, so if you are listening though, and you Matt, did you get a tweet from the account? Can we retweet
like I said,
that?
yeah, it was Instagram actually. KJ
Okay.
McNeely, KJ.McNeely. If you are in Milwaukee, reach out to that young man and get a group together, because that would be
Sounds good.
just
And we'll put out
awesome.
a call, on the New York Foxes account too, because we've certainly had folks I know through the years who've joined us from different parts of Wisconsin when they've been in New York. I know that there are some really great football communities in Milwaukee, in Madison, in other places, in all the cities in Wisconsin. A lot of different clubs are represented out there. Um, after the helicopter crash, 5 years ago, the New York Foxes group, we received a really touching letter from a bunch of groups in Wisconsin who all supported various clubs. It's something that I still keep here in my house. It's a nice little reminder of what the football community can be like, and how different types of people can come together during some tough times. And so I know there are a lot of great fans out there in the great state of Wisconsin, and I have no doubt that we will start seeing and sharing photos of an awesome Milwaukee Foxes group.
Hell yeah, guys. On that note, you mentioned the helicopter crash, Jason. We did have a report come out last week that kind of put some, finality to the story and the tragedy, and filled in a lot of questions and things that were kind of still up in the air about what happened. Basically, from everything that came out in the thing, it was what we already knew, that the pilot was an absolute hero, did everything he could in a absolutely devastating situation, that there was nothing he could have done, and it was good to finally get a little bit of clarity on that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly our hearts go out to, and will always go out to, Couldn't Be Shy, and pilot Eric Swaffer, and co-pilot and his partner Isabella Lekowitz, and then the passengers Kevaporn Pimpare and Nusara Sugnami, and those are names that will be a part of our story, and folks that we will do our best to remember forever. But Eric Swaffer certainly goes down as a true hero, I think, under such harrowing and circumstances, and really without much time at all. The report did show that he did everything possible and took all of the appropriate actions to try to save lives, and was almost able to do so. And so I hope when people hear that name and think of this tragedy, they think of him and the hero that he was that night. And also the report showed that there were 2 very brave police officers who rushed to the crash and tried to save the lives of those on board, and just an incredibly selfless and dangerous thing to do, to try to save other people's lives. And so when we think about this night and the tragedy, we will be able to kind of remember that there were heroes in the helicopter near the crash, and people doing whatever they could to save others. And well, nothing makes this any better, but I think it's good for the record to now show that, these folks and everyone there, like, we're not at fault for anything. And if anything, went above and beyond for everyone around them.
Definitely. On that note, guys, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Like we said, Southampton on Friday, noon West Coast and 3 o'clock East Coast. So get to the bar if you can. Bring your friend, and let's get a nice 3 points against Southampton heading into this brutal little chunk of the schedule here. Thank you, as always, for joining us here on the US Foxes podcast. Once again, it has been a pleasure. For Jason in New York, Jim in Texas, and Chris pushing the buttons behind the scenes here in San Diego, I am Matt, and we will see you next time on the US Foxes podcast. Cheers, guys.